Hey guys, welcome to ESO. This is my first video and I'm going to be going over the MagSorc DPS build that I've made. A lot of people have asked me to do this. This is a really good DPS character. We run a High Elf. I'm going to go over all the attributes and skills for you guys. We'll start with attributes. Obviously, I put everything into magic that I can. Just so you have that more sustainability, stuff like that for your spells. So this is our max magic, 34,000. Actually, give me one sec. That's because I'm on the wrong bar. So I got two different bars. I'll go over those as well. So our max magic is close to 38,000. Health is at 19,000. We don't really need a whole lot of stam. So this is without any buffs on, anything like that. Our spell damage is 2582 with a 73.7% crit. If we were to take out the second bar, and I'll show you guys the stuff on here, there's two things on the back bar that I pop. You go back to your character, your spell damage is now over 3,000, which is really good, and especially with that spell crit being so high at 73.7%. It also raises our resistances. Our spell and physical resistance go up to 21,000 and 16,000, which is really good for sustaining if you're doing solo content by yourself. That's going to disappear here in a second, though, so... yeah, so magic, you want to put in all your ability stats into magic. And then if we go down to the skills, I run a few different things I've tried out. This is what I like the best for me. So the first skill we run is Inner Light. Now this, we don't even use this, it just sits on the front bar. As you can see down here, after it's been morphed to Inner... This is a Mage Light ability. Once it's morphed to Inner Light, you can see down here at the bottom it says, while slotted, your max magic is increased by 5%. You gain Major Prophecy, increasing your spell crit rating by 2191, which is really cool. We also have another passive ability on our front bar called Bound Aegis. This one also, we don't even use this skill. This is another one, just having it slotted, we get the perks out of it. So this one says, while slotted, your max magic is increased by 8%. You gain Minor Resolve, increasing your physical and spell resistance by 1320, which is awesome. And I do run two pets on both bars. So we have the Summon Volatile Familiar. So obviously he does 1601 shock damage to enemies. But once you activate his special ability for 3825 magic, he then deals 2832 shock damage every 2 seconds for 10 seconds to enemies near him. And then that final pulse that he does will stun all enemies for 3 seconds near him. And then the next one over is our Hardened Ward. Now this is really good. I make sure I keep this active as much as I can. This is our Overshield. So, conjure Globes of Daedric Energy for protection, granting a damage shield for you and your pets that absorb 11,537 damage for 6 seconds. The damage shield strength is capped at 60% of your max health. So I always make sure that's popped. Once that's gone, I make sure to go back to it, pop it again. I make sure that's always active as much as possible. This one I was kind of torn between. There's two different options for the pet. You have Summon Twilight Matriarch and the Tormentor. Now the Tormentor, you can activate the Tormentor's ability for extra damage at opponents above 50% health. The thing is once they get below 50% health, let's say you're on like a hard boss, let's say their health is 2 million, you're down to 1 million health, your Matriarch or your Tormentor then becomes kind of useless. It can't do any more DPS, like immense DPS to the boss. So it just does its own attack, right? So by having the Matriarch, we do have that healing option if needed. So that's why I run the Matriarch, just in case there is a time where we're weak or people are around us, our pets, whatever it is that's weak, we always have this healing option from the Matriarch. So this is, once summoned, you can activate the Twilight Matriarch special ability for 3901 magic, causing to heal up the Matriarch and up to 2 other friendly targets for 12,146 health. Now it says that's the max, 12,146 health. I've actually seen it heal a lot more. We were during a dungeon. There was a tank that was missing a lot of health, and it healed him for like over 20,000. So I'm not sure if it's because we're in a dungeon, we got the stats went up, whatever, but it does heal for quite a bit. So that's why I run that one. And then I run the Greater Storm Atronach on the front bar. I don't even use this one. It's kind of situational that you'll use it. But having this on your bar, if you come down to, I think it's the Storm Calling. So increase your weapon and spell damage by 2% for each sorcerer ability slotted. So having that Greater Atronach gives us an extra 2% damage buff on the front bar that we use for DPSing. And then if we go to our back bar, this is where most of the stuff you pop. So we have Critical Surge. Invoke Meridian is named to gain Major Brutality and Sorcery, increasing your weapon and spell damage by 20% for 33 seconds. Now that's a huge buff. While it's active, dealing any crit damage heals you for 3,300 health. This can occur once every second. So this is pretty much what you sustain off of, which is really good. I'll go over weapons and everything like that and let you guys know why Blockade of Storms is really good. This is an AoE that when you slam your staff down, it creates a storm barrier in front of you, dealing 1273 shock damage to enemies in the target area for 1 second, and setting concussed enemies off balance for 7 seconds. Now in our champion points, we do have something in our champion points where we do an extra 10% damage to off-balanced opponents. So while this off-balances them, we get that extra 10% DPS against those adds that are off-balance, which is really awesome. And like I said, we keep the pets on both bars, so that way they don't disappear. You don't have to resummon them, anything like that. So it's the same pets on the back bar. And this right here, I'm gonna give you 2 different options. And this is all you guys. This is opinion mattered as well. So I run Boundless Storm on this back bar. So it manifests yourself as pure lightning, zapping nearby enemies with electricity, dealing 962 shock damage every 1 second for 23 seconds. Now it's kind of an AoE. I feel like it hits pretty good. But it's more about this as well. So while you're in this form, you also gain Major Resolve, increasing your physical and spell resistance by 5280. So you can take a lot more damage. Activating this grants Major Expedition for a brief period, increase your movement speed by 30% for 4 seconds as well. So sometimes I will switch out this Boundless Storm. I'll keep everything the same, but Boundless Storm, sometimes I will switch out with the Psijic skill line with Channel Acceleration. So you can run either one. They both work really good. I feel like Channel Acceleration is more of a single target. I feel like you get a lot more crit damage. You can melt bosses a little bit quicker than you can with the Boundless Storm. But it says bend time and space around you to gain Major Expedition for 12 seconds. So that's your speed. And then Minor Force for 36 seconds, increasing your crit damage by 10%. So you get another 10% critical damage for 36 seconds, which is kind of a long time. And you want to make sure you got the passives down here. This reduces your ability to cast it. While you have the ability slotted, you can see that, I don't have it slotted right now. I can show you guys though. If you slot it, you do kind of get another damage shield on top of it just by blocking. This can absorb like 5,000 damage, which is pretty cool. So I mean, you can pop it. If you have that overshell I was talking about, it's right there for you and your pets. And then you also have that other damage shield if needed. So I mean, you can absorb a lot of damage with this guy, which is really cool. So it's up to you guys. You guys want to run the Boundless Storm or Channel Acceleration. Those are the 2 I recommend on the back bar in that place. And then I run Thunderous Rage. I feel like this is the best ultimate in the game. I feel like this just melts bosses, single target adds. If you're in trials, anything you want, this melts. And especially AoEs too. I mean, this is good AoE for lots of adds, ad control, or bosses. But create a Cataclysmic Storm at the target location that builds after 2 seconds. And then lays waste to all enemies in the area, dealing 8983 shock damage every 1 second for 7 seconds. The ability lasts 2 seconds longer from using a lightning staff. So we get an extra 2 seconds. So it goes up to 9 seconds. And it does a lot of damage. So those are the skills that I run on both my bars. Now if we go into a champion points, we can just start with, we'll just start with the Lubber, and then we'll go to the right. So I try to keep these 2 even. So Arcanist, obviously that's your magic recov. A lot of people put that at 100. I am a heavy attacker. We'll go over gear here in a second. So I'm a heavy attacker as well, so I like to have tenacity up. So increase the magic and stamina that your fully charged heavy attacks restore by 14.97. So if I'm always heavy attacking, I get that almost 15% max magic back, or that magic back. So I really like using that a lot. I like having 75 in the shadow. Just because of the treasure hunter for like the chests you open, stuff like that, in trials, dungeons, even in the world. So I don't really block a whole lot on this character. So I just put 10 into the shadow ward. There are times where I feel like I'm roll dodging a lot on this character. So reduce the cost of roll dodge by 2191. I'll put the rest 65 into tumbling, and so that's my green side. That's the thief. If you go over to mage, I put 60 into Elfborn. So this increases your critical damage, healing, with magic abilities almost by 21%. We're right there. Elemental Expert, we put 64 points, increasing your flame, frost, shock, and magic damage done by 13.01. And then spell erosion, you don't need a whole lot of spell penetration. I found out. Anything over 1,000 is pretty good. So I just put 10 in there to get over the 1,000 mark. Now I got the Atronach. And I'm always torn between these two. But you can see this one's almost 15%. It's at 14.79. And this one's over 15%. So I try to keep those kind of even. So the Staff Expert increase your damage done with light and heavy attacks for destruction restoration staves, as well as overload by 15.38. So like I said, I'm always heavy attacking, so this is good for heavy attackers and light attackers, I guess. But so Master at Arms, increase your damage done with direct damage attacks by 14.79. If we go over to the Ritual, like I said, there's a bunch of AoE stuff that we have, damage over time stuff going. So Thaumaturge increases your damage done with damage over time effects by 23.4%, which I think is pretty awesome. Now, if we go over to the Warrior, the first one in is the Steed. I think 91 might be too much, but I've got 91 on mine, and I'm telling you guys, this is a really good build still. And this is all opinion based. So Ironclad reduces your damage taken against direct damage attacks by 24.77. Your Spell Shield increases your spell resistance by 35.64. So if you guys want, you guys can take some out of Ironclad, put more into Spell Shield if you guys feel like it. So this one I kind of try to keep a little bit even as well. So Hardy reduces your damage taken from physical, poison, disease damage by 10.95%. As same as Elemental Defender, 10.95% for reducing your damage taken from flame, frost, shock, and magic damage. And then this one, Thick Skin, reduces your damage taken from damage over time effects by 16.02. And then that's it for my champion points that we covered. And like I said, so with my class, I feel like High Elf is the way to go. We'll go over the skill. So if you look at the passives, the reason why I do this, so High Elf, it's not about the experience. I mean, you get experience all the time, increase your experience gain by 1%, and especially the Destruction Staff skill line, you get it up pretty quick. When you activate a class ability, you restore 640 magic or stamina, based on whichever is the lowest. This effect can occur once every 6 seconds. When you're using an ability with a channel or cast time, you take 5% less damage, which is awesome. We get 2,000 increased max magic. And then right here, increase your spell damage by 258, which I think is really good. That's why I like the High Elf, because we get that extra spell damage as a racial, more than anything else. So inventory. So what I've been running is I'll run Mother of Sorrows. So we have Mother of Sorrows jewelry, and then the Mother of Sorrows lightning staff. So I run shock damage on the front bar with precise to increase that weapon and spell crit by 7%. I'm pretty sure most of you guys will know what the Mother of Sorrows staff does. We'll switch it over so you guys can see all the active passives from it. So the 5 set, the 2 set gives us max magic. 3, 4 gives us spell crit as well as 5, but that 5 piece gives us a lot of spell crit. So this is where all your spell crit basically comes from the Mother of Sorrows set. So that's really good for DPS. Our main hand backup, I run the Maelstrom Lightning Staff, and like I said, this is where your Wall of Elements comes in. So if you look down here at the bottom where it says part of the Crushing Wall set, your light and heavy attacks deal an additional 1341 damage to enemies in your Wall of Elements. So every time you pop your Wall of Elements, that AoE lasts about 8-9 seconds, and just anything you're attacking there takes that extra 1341 damage, which is really good on DPS. Monster sets, I really like Zons a lot. A lot of people ask, like, you should run AoE stuff. I get that. The only reason I run Zons is really good. It's really powerful. I feel like it's like the most powerful monster set in the game. Let's say you're doing Maelstrom Arena, you're the world boss, you're in Trials and you come across a boss. This is going to melt bosses more than anything, and that's why I run it. So I put Divines on all my gear, running the Mundus Stone with the Shadow for increased crit damage, and then Divines on everything to increase that Mundus Stone effect by 7.5%. So Zons, we get a little bit more spell crit. When you damage nearby enemies with light or heavy attacks, you have a 20% chance to create a beam of fire that will connect you to your enemy. The beam deals 4678 flame damage every 1 second to your enemy for 5 seconds. Every second, this damage increased by 50%. This beam is broken if enemies move 8 meters away from you. This effect can occur every 18 seconds. Now, 18 seconds might feel like a long time, but I feel like Zons procs quite often for me. I'm always making sure I'm in range, I'm up close to the enemies, bosses, etc. So if you're fighting bosses in dungeons, you're gonna melt bosses so much faster. It's awesome. And then my second set besides Mother of Sorrows, I run the Infallible Aether. A lot of people say this one's not very good anymore. It got nerfed. Not people run it, but if you're a heavy attacker like me, Lightning staffs are a lot easier for heavy attacking to get your resources back, such as magic. And then while running Infallible Aether, we got Divines again. So this gets our spell crit. We get Minor Slayer at all times, increasing our damage done by 5% in Dungeons, Trials, Arenas. Spell damage, spell crit, and right here. Your heavy attacks deal an additional 903 damage. Enemies that you attack with your enemies that you damage with your heavy attacks, you afflict them with that minor vulnerability for 10 seconds, increasing their damage taken by 8%. So when you damage them with a heavy attack, now you have another 8% damage on top of this that you're dealing towards that enemy. So it could be a boss, whatever. And that's for, and then everyone gets that buff as well, since it's applied to that target. Everyone else starts getting that 8% damage towards that boss. And then every time you heavy attack, it keeps you setting that timer. So you can keep that active at all times, which is awesome. And then so yeah, like I said, for the traits, I run all magic for my enchantments, all max magic. And then for the traits, I run all divines on the gear. And then what we do on the, I just barely change this too. So with our jewelry, I run infused and spell damage on the necklace, give us a little bit more spell damage, put us over 3,000 spell damage when we have those spell crit and Boundless Storm active. And on the rings, I put Bloodthirsties on, because these do stack, I found out. So we had spell damage on all our jewelry for the enchantments, and then infused, and then 2 Bloodthirsties. So Bloodthirsties increase damage against enemies under 25% health by 10%. So we're getting a 20% damage buff on enemies under 25% health. I did run Bloodthirsty on all 3 of them, so I got 30%. But I like having that extra spell damage at all times for anybody. So that is my set. I will show you guys in another video soon, like a Maelstrom run on this character, show you guys what these sets look like, what it looks like when it's ran in a Vet Maelstrom Arena or Vet Dungeon, stuff like that, Trials. That way you guys can kind of see it in action. But this is my build. This is my favorite thing to run. This is my MagSorc I've mained, and he hits really hard. He can get you through pretty much anything on Vet. A lot of solo content as well. So, guys, thanks for watching. Please stop by the stream if you guys have any questions, anything like that, any tips for me. I really appreciate it. I'll go ahead and link my Twitch in the description. But I hope to see you guys around.